typology of illness. At the end of the session, you should be able to describe the different psychosocial types of illness, describe the different time phases of illness, and describe the developmental task of families in each time phase, and to apply the psychosocial typology of illness in clinical settings. So we talked about two frameworks that can help us look into the psychosocial aspect or the impact of illness on the individual and the family. So these are your family illness trajectory and your psychosocial typology of illness. Okay, so both frameworks can help us doctors predict, anticipate, and support the patient and the family going through an illness experience. So the family illness trajectory shows you the normal course of the psychosocial aspects of disease and the response and the normal and pathologic response of the patient and the family to the illness. Okay, so it guides us on our responsibilities as physicians during each stage in the illness trajectory. The psychosocial typology of illness, on the other hand, characterizes the different chronic illnesses. Okay, so it enables us to categorize chronic illnesses based on psychosocial type and psychosocial terms over time. Okay, so in the psychosocial typology of illness, we get to see the psychosocial demands of certain illnesses across different time phases. Okay, and it shows us what the family must learn, the developmental tasks that they have to understand and learn in each time phase. Okay, so what do we teach them, or how do we guide them so that they are able to overcome or to cope with the different chronic illnesses in each time phase? Okay, so the psychosocial typology of illness was developed by John Rowland. Okay, so it provides a framework for assessment and clinical intervention of individuals and families facing a chronic illness. So what he did was he integrated key characteristics of certain diseases and the family system. So he was able to categorize chronic diseases and assess its impact on the family. So he discovered that chronic disease can be classified based on psychosocial type and time phase. So these are the two dimensions that can be correlated to the family or the family system. So this is the concept map of his psychosocial typology. Okay, so there are 4 common psychosocial types that can be used to categorize the different chronic diseases. These are onset, course, outcome, and incapacitation. So significant key characteristics of diseases determine which category each chronic disease will fall in or fall under. So each psychosocial type have corresponding psychosocial demands on the family. So that's what, if they are in that certain, they have that certain psychosocial type, or the disease has that certain psychosocial type, what do we expect from the illness, and how will the family be able to cope with that particular psychosocial type? And with this psychosocial type also, it can fall under different illness, different phases in the illness timeline. So you have your crisis, chronic, and terminal phase. Okay, so again, chronic diseases can be categorized into these different psychosocial types. Okay, and he was able to come up with this because he put together the different characteristics of chronic illnesses. Okay. Yeah, so these are your 4 psychosocial types. So onset, whether acute or gradual; course, whether progressive, constant, or relapsing; incapacitation, whether present or not; and the outcome that's expected of the disease, whether fatal, non-fatal, or possibly fatal. So ito yon. So you have certain chronic diseases that can be Now, so based on onset, either acute or gradual. Based on course, they can be progressive, relapsing, or constant. They can be incapacitating or non-incapacitating. Okay, and the outcome can either be fatal, possibly fatal, or non-fatal. So let's take cerebral palsy as an example. So this is the illness of April Hernandez in the movie. So how do we characterize her chronic disease? Okay, her cerebral palsy has gradual onset. So it took them 2 years, before they figured out what her illness was. Course is constant. Okay, so once the illness is there, there's not really much change in the course of the disease. Okay. It's incapacitating, and we did see that there's mental incapacitation. Initially, there's also physical incapacitation because she was not able to walk until she underwent na. Hindi pa rin siya ganun ka ayos lumakad. Okay? And it's non-fatal. Okay, so nobody dies of cerebral palsy. So if we categorize now myasthenia gravis, so we said earlier that myasthenia gravis has what kind of onset? What type of onset? So myasthenia gravis, acute. Bigla na lang siyang nag-present. Okay? Is it a disease what's the course of the illness? Is it progressive, relapsing, or constant? So the doctor actually mentioned that it's a progressive illness, meaning the patient will be symptomatic and continue to develop different symptoms through time until the patient dies. So it's progressive. Okay, and the patient will die, which makes it part of these illnesses. So it's acute, it's non-incapacitating. Actually, it's incapacitating. Dito pala siya. Kasi the patient can no longer move because, di ba, myasthenia gravis affects the muscles. Okay. So it's acute in onset, it's incapacitating, it's progressive, and it's fatal. So if we were to include myasthenia gravis in this table, it will fall here. Okay, so that's how we categorize different diseases based on psychosocial type. So these are other examples of cancer. So when you have cancer in remission, it has acute onset. Okay, it's fatal kasi cancer. It's relapsing kasi, di ba, initially the cancer-free na, and then initially with cancer, and then they undergo therapy and they go into remission. So it's non-incapacitating if the patient, if the patient did not develop any complications during the illness itself. Okay, but it's still fatal. So it's cancers in remission fall under this category. Okay. So sabi two dimensions. So we talked about psychosocial type. We talk now about the illness timeline. So the illness timeline, or the time phase of illness, these are your transition points, or the landmarks that can mark the psychosocial, the demands of each illness. So the demands during the crisis phase will be different during the chronic phase, and will be different as well during the terminal phase. Okay, so the tasks of the family also will differ. So if they are in the crisis phase, what should they learn, or what should they do so that they will be able to cope with the illness? When they are in the chronic phase, what should they prepare for, or how should they, what should they know, or how should they understand the illness so that they know what to do while they are in the chronic phase? Okay? And what are their developmental tasks when they are already in the terminal phase? So each time phase has its own unique psychosocial developmental tasks that require different strengths, attitudes, or changes from within the family. So let's talk about the different time phases. Okay, so we start with the crisis phase. Your crisis phase is the time, the time when the patient um, becomes symptomatic. That's the time from the pre-diagnosis up to the time that a diagnosis is made and up to the initial adjustment period. After a diagnosis is made and when treatment is there already. Okay, so it's the symptomatic period before diagnosis and the initial period of adjustment. And the important psychosocial type to consider here is the onset of the illness. So whether it's acute or gradual. So same as your family illness trajectory for acute onset symptoms, you expect that reactions are compressed into a short time. You expect that the family would need more rapid mobilization of crisis management skills. And you expect that when there is limited resources, there is crisis in the family or the family can fall into crisis. So on the other hand, your gradual onset illness, you have a family that can slowly cope with what's happening, cope with the symptoms. So there is coping, but it's coping that's prolonged. Okay, so there's more time to adjust, but during that time that the patient is symptomatic, there is heightened anticipatory anxiety. And with this, until they discover what the patient is really ill of, there's frustration, there's distrust, okay? There's resorting to alternative or unorthodox treatment, which we saw in the movie. Okay? And finally, until a diagnosis is reached, they stay in that state. Okay, so what stages of the family illness trajectory is seen in the crisis phase? So it's all stages actually, from stage 1 to stage 4. So from the onset of illness up to the initial adjustment to the outcome of illness, it all takes place during this crisis phase. Okay, and the developmental tasks that families have to learn so that they can cope or adjust to this crisis phase is to be able to pull together to undergo short-term crisis, okay, short-term crisis reorganization. So they should be able to support each other. They should be able to exchange roles, despite the challenges. Okay, they should have open communication so that they know how to help each other. Okay, so a family that is functional is best able to cope with the crisis phase. Okay, so in the face of uncertainty, not knowing what the outcome will be, they should be flexible enough so that they can readjust to what may happen in the future. Okay, and they should be able to move toward the position of acceptance of the permanent change. So a family that is functional, able to tolerate highly charged emotional states, okay, so that acute onset, they should be able to, I mentioned already, clearly define their roles and be able to flexibly adjust to the different roles as needed. So if the patient needs a caregiver, so one family member will become that caregiver, and the tasks of that caregiver will fall onto other family members. They should be able to take on whatever role is needed so that the family will still be able to function. Okay, so open and direct communication will enable them to support each other. So they know what they need and they can talk openly about how they're feeling, all their anger, all their anxieties, and they are able to discuss and settle whatever problems they have. So they are able to problem solve effectively and efficiently use outside resources. Okay, so functional families, I mentioned, are capable of coping and adjusting to any acute illness. With gradual onset illnesses, the family has to learn to deal with the pain, the incapacitation, or any other illness-related symptom. They have to learn to deal with the hospital environment and any disease-related treatment procedures, and to be able to establish a maintainable and maintain a workable relationship with the healthcare team. Okay, so if the family is able to, kasi nga, they don't know yet, what can happen, what the outcome is. And, every time the patient is symptomatic, so they know what to do. So that's a characteristic of the family who can cope or can adjust to the crisis stage, despite the patient not, despite not knowing what the illness is. Okay, so in the crisis space, in general, we should be able, the family should be able to create a meaning for the illness event that maximizes the preservation of a sense of mastery and competency. Okay, so despite what the outcome is, despite what happens from stage 1 to stage 4, they should be able to, create a meaning for the illness. Okay, so they should be able to explore what's happening, okay, and they should be able to gain control of the situation. Okay? They should be able to return, to to have a different role, one that is different from the pre-illness situation that they were in. Okay, so they have to readjust to a life as they knew it, their new life prior to the illness. Okay, so a family that can adjust despite what takes place from stage 1 to stage 4 will able to transition to the next phase, which is your chronic phase. Okay, so the chronic phase is the time phase between the diagnosis, the readjustment, and the third phase, when issues of death predominates. Okay, so this is the longest. It can be a long phase. So it's actually called the phase of where there, and it's actually called the long haul or the phase of day-to-day living with the chronic illness. Okay, so depending on the illness, again, it can be short, it can be long, and the impact on the family would depend on the two important or the two significant psychosocial types in this phase. Okay, so how families deal with illness would depend on the course of the illness and the presence or absence of incapacitation from the illness. So when we talk of course, whether the illness is progressive, constant, or relapsing or episodic, you expect different impact. You have different reactions from the family. And if definitely an incapacitating chronic disease is more difficult to manage than one that is non-incapacitating. So let's start with the course of illness. Okay, so when we say progressive course, you expect a disease that has a course that is persistent. Okay, or you expect the patient to be generally symptomatic the whole time. Okay, and you expect continuous deterioration as the illness progresses in severity. So through time, there is continuous symptoms, and these symptoms may actually increase in severity through time. So what do you expect from a progressive disease? So there is minimal relief for caregivers from the demands of the illness. So they need to constantly adapt. They need to constantly change roles and be flexible. maybe the activities of daily living. So you may have a patient that at some point the patient can still eat on his own or eat independently, but later on, as the disease worsens, they become more dependent on you, on the caregiver for their activities of daily living. There may be need for new equipment or new medications, no, as symptoms progress, as the illness progresses. Okay, and there may also be the occurrences of complications, no, as the disease progresses also. So there can be a new illness, or there can be worsening, no, of complications. Okay, so that's the whole scenario when you are dealing with a progressive illness. Okay, so the impact on the family, definitely there is increasing strain. Okay, so there is risk of exhaustion, no, because of the addition of new caretaking tasks over time, because of the additional expenses every time the patient needs to be hospitalized or stays longer in the hospital, or expenses with medications. So the change, sometimes the medications would need to be changed. Okay, so depending on, again, the severity of the illness, the response of the patient, when there's new illness or when there's new complications that arise, so expensive, because they may need hospitalization again. They may be, mas madalas na. Okay, so dati, mga once or twice a year lang na-hospitalize yung patient. But later on, as the disease progresses, they find themselves being admitted every month and staying longer. So dati, after 2 weeks, nakauwi na. No, but because the illness progressed again, the next admission, they stayed for 2 months na. And the next admission, choice na nila, whether they want to stay in the hospital or if continuity of care as home, is a better option for them. Okay, so there's increasing strain because of the need to decide, in decision making. Every time something happens, they have to decide whether or not they have to go to the hospital again, decide whether or not to stay in the hospital, decide on what treatments they would still want, or how aggressive they want to be in terms of patient management. Okay, so what are the different examples of diseases, chronic diseases that have a progressive course? Okay, so you have your Alzheimer's disease, you have your Parkinson's disease, you have emphysema, you have metastatic cancer, you have AIDS, you have amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or your Lou Gehrig's disease, and then you have your myasthenia gravis. Okay, so again, these illnesses progress through time, see more complications through time. There's increase in severity of the illness. Okay, so we expect the family to be constantly on their toes as each complication or as the disease becomes complicated. Okay, so next you have your constant course. Okay, so for illnesses with a constant course, you have an initial event followed by stabilization of the biological course of illness. So hindi katulad ni progressive that worsens through time. Here, something happens and then the patient stabilizes from then on. So there may be an initial period of recovery, then a chronic phase. So that chronic phase, because it's constant na, there's stability. So either there is deficit or residual or some functional limitation. Okay, so there can be a semi-permanent change, but the change is stable and can be predictable over a considerable time. So there is still the potential for family exhaustion, but without the strain of new role demands over time. Okay, and the exhaustion can come from can just be there initially, when the acute episode happens, but after that, they are able to readjust because there are no more major changes that can take place. Okay, but there's still strain from anxiety, from thinking or knowing that there can be reoccurrence of that problem or that medical problem. So examples of diseases with a constant course are your stroke. So you have the initial event, so the patient either loses consciousness or has sudden weakness. But after that episode, it's either the patient fully recovers from that stroke or has some residual. So you have some patients who are able to walk. They have a partial um, inability to move one side of their body, but through therapy, they can be taught to walk again, can be taught to feed themselves again or to live independently again. Okay? Another constant disease is myocardial infarct. Okay, so there's that initial heart attack, and after that, the patient will either be able to return to some form of functionality. So for mild myocardial infarcts or mild heart attacks, they can go back, but they can have that experience of being fearful, that it can happen again, especially when they are reminded, diba, that every time a stroke or a heart attack happens, it worsens every time there is an episode again. Okay, but after that initial heart attack, the patient, whatever outcome comes from that disease event, will be steady na. So you don't expect naman na heart attack unless the patient is non-compliant, unless the patient has fatal pala sa kanya. So nag-survive siya, but because it's fatal MI, we expect progression of the illness and the patient will eventually die. But if it's just mild, you have just a mild form of your myocardial infarct, mild form of stroke, it is constant. Whatever happens, whatever the outcome, can be constant all throughout. Okay. Other constant diseases, you have your non-progressive mental retardation. So kung ano na yung education level or yung kanyang neurologic deficits, that's it all throughout. Okay, so si cerebral palsy was one of our examples. So once it's there na. But whatever incapacity the patient has, that's steady over time na. Spinal cord injury also. So after that initial trauma, if it's from trauma, after that spinal cord injury, you expect no changes anymore. Okay, so if the patient becomes bedridden after that spinal cord injury, ganun na siya. Okay, but problems may still occur if there is neglect. So hindi na siya, so the patient is bedridden and dependent on others, on all activities of daily living, precisely because of that spinal cord injury. So if the family will not take care of this patient, that's when he or she will have problems. But disease-wise, after that initial injury, wala na. That's it. The patient, you don't expect any changes from the disease itself, but there can be readjustment if the patient develops complications from that stable disease. Okay, and then the last type, of course, is your relapsing or episodic chronic diseases. Okay, so in relapsing or episodic chronic diseases, you expect alternations of stable periods of varying length characterized by low level or absence of symptoms and periods of flare-ups or exacerbations. Okay, so one moment the patient is okay, then the next moment the patient becomes symptomatic. Okay, so there is strain on the family system due to the frequency of transitions between crisis and non-crisis. Okay, so if the patient is symptomatic, then they go into crisis again. Okay, so if your patient has uncontrolled COPD, so you expect that when the patient is symptomatic, so he's not able to breathe. Now you have to rush them to the hospital, especially if you've done all the necessary interventions at home. So nag-nebulize na, nag-take na ng oral steroids, and the patient still cannot breathe. So there's no choice no but to rush the patient to the ER. And when they're once in the ER, once admitted, sometimes there's that decision again, no, whether or not to intubate the patient. Okay, so bakit ba siya ba't kailangan i-intubate, or will intubate still help? That's another decision making that has to be done. Okay, and also, no, strain comes from that uncertainty when the recurrence will take place. Okay, so okay siya ngayon, pero you're anxious because you know that any time this patient will go into relapse again, or will go into exacerbation again. So with relapsing or episodic chronic illnesses, it requires family flexibility. Okay, because there is that wide psychological discrepancy between periods of normalcy when the patient is mildly symptomatic or even asymptomatic, and the changes that they have to go through, or the readjustments that they have to go through when the patient becomes symptomatic again, or when there is illness exacerbation. Okay, so relapsing or episodic illnesses can be as simple as your rheumatoid or osteoarthritis. So now when you have your lolas who have knee pain, and when they have that knee pain, their knees are very swollen, they cannot walk, they cannot move, they're in constant pain. And there you are, no, you have to assist. You have to assist them during those periods of flares. You have to help them walk. You have to watch them be in pain. So sometimes, di ba, maawa ka kasi nga nakikita mo hirap na hirap. So you have to, sometimes you just bring them their food na lang. Okay, so yun. But it can also be as bad nga as, severe asthma, severe COPD, SLE, and cancer in remission. Okay, so cancer in remission, crisis phase, when they discover the cancer, all throughout the treatment process, and when the patient is stable, after all the interventions. Okay, but the doctor will still advise you that you have to maintain your, what do you call that, surveillance. So you still have to undergo certain laboratory diagnostics and even examinations, physical examinations. So initially, after the first treatment, you go every 3 months. Tapos, pag wala naman, hindi naman significant yung mga 3 months, then you move on to doing every year surveillances. Okay, so humahaba ng humahaba, okay yung family, they begin to readjust again, until that time that they discover a recurrence of the cancer. Okay, so iba-iba, but definitely for relapsing or episodic illnesses, it requires a lot of family flexibility because there is that discrepancy when the patient is okay and when the patient has exacerbation. Okay, so there is a period of non-crisis, the patient is okay, and periods of crisis. Okay. So we also mentioned that in the chronic phase, another significant psychosocial type to take into consideration is incapacitation. So incapacitation may result from impairment of cognition, as seen in Alzheimer's, stroke, and cerebral palsy developmental delays. There could be incapacitation in sensation. So patients who develop blindness or deafness, you have incapacitation of movement. So when the patient develops paralysis, there is impairment of energy production, as seen in cardiovascular diseases, your congestive heart failure or your COPD, when it worsens through time. So at some point, the patient becomes dyspneic, even with a very short walk. Okay, so and then eventually they may require oxygen support, no, even if they're not moving at all. There's impairment from disfigurement, from severe burns, from leprosy. Okay. And there's impairment associated with social stigma, so as seen in TB, HIV, and AIDS. Okay, so stigma. So the degree of stress on the family depends on the extent, type, and timing of incapacitation. If you have illnesses that are more complex. Okay, so between stroke and spinal cord injury. So with stroke, there is combined motor and cognitive impairment. So it would require more family flexibility and more family role reallocation, because with stroke, the patient, if there is also cognitive impairment, it's difficult to try to identify what the patient wants or what the patient needs, as opposed to spinal cord injury when there is just motor incapacitation. So the patient cannot move, but the patient can tell what he needs or she needs, okay, because the cognitive aspect is not, there's no cognitive incapacitation. Okay. Also, you expect with stroke, it could be worse, or stroke and spinal cord injury. It can be worse in the early onset, but eventually, through time, it may improve, or through time, may further worsen. But you expect further worsening more with stroke than with spinal cord injury. Okay. So stroke versus Parkinson's, the difference there is in the timing. Okay, so for stroke, the incapacitation is worse at the onset of disease. And Parkinson's, you expect incapacitation to be worse at a later time. Okay, so si stroke, the incapacity is there at the onset of the disease. The patient may improve or worsen through time. So, but with Parkinson's, you have a fully functional patient that will progressively deteriorate through time. So after a certain period of time, patients with Parkinson's, they can no longer walk at all. So eventually, from a fully functional patient with just tremors and with just difficulty with their ambulation, so eventually they will become bedridden. They cannot walk at all. Then eventually they will develop difficulty of swallowing. So you have to find ways not to feed them. So these are patients that are candidates for nasogastric tube feeding or for PEG feeding. Okay, so that would require, again, changes within the family, kasi they have to learn to feed the patient, or they have to get professional help, or to get a caregiver who can do the feeding for the patient. Okay, so yeah, the timing is also a factor with these chronic illnesses. Alzheimer's disease is a disease, it's an illness that is progressive and incapacitating through time. Okay, so disability is an increasing problem in later phases of the illness. So same as Parkinson's. Okay, but the difference is, that's why Alzheimer's is more difficult to manage than Parkinson's, is because with Alzheimer's there can be cognitive changes. So with Parkinson's, it's more of the motor lang, the neurologic. Okay, so wala masyadong cognitive. But with Alzheimer's, there could be cognitive changes. Okay, so you have a patient who suddenly develops, who suddenly has behavioral changes. So from a mild-mannered person to nagiging aggressive. Okay, so because it's a progressive illness and there's incapacitation through time for both diseases, there's time for the family to prepare. Okay, so they can anticipate the changes that can happen. And in the initial periods, the patient has the opportunity to make decisions. Okay, so when the time comes and I become too difficult to manage, okay, or when the time comes when I am just dependent on all these um, life-sustaining interventions, I don't want them anymore. Okay, so yeah, those are the the different impacts of the different illnesses. But in general, developmental tasks of families when they are in the chronic phase or the period of the long haul or the day-to-day living with the chronic illness, they should be able to maintain a semblance of normalcy or normal life with the chronic illness and despite heightened uncertainty. Okay, so they should be able to go back to what their real roles are, and they should be able to adjust. Okay? They should maintain maximal autonomy. So each member has to be able to return to have some form of autonomy. But when the time comes that they are needed, they should be able to again help each other out. Okay, so as opposed to everyone being pulled into the illness. So wala nang nakabalik. So, these are the difficulties with chronic illnesses. No? Because there are expenses involved, because caregiving tasks change through time. So the resources, very important. So it's very important for family members to be able to go back to their work so that they can pay for the needs of the patient. So definitely, especially with progressive illnesses, especially with incapacitation, you don't expect the patient to be able to come up with the necessary funds to continue yung kanilang health. Unless, minor lang and then they're back. So mild lang. The outcome is there's no incapacitation. So madali mag-readjust. But if there is incapacitation, if you're dealing with a progressive disease, if you're dealing with a relapsing disease, definitely you expect more anxiety. Definitely, you expect more resources. You need more depletion of resources. Okay, and also, if the illness is potentially fatal, the outcome, so the patient is stable for now, but you know that it's a progressive illness that would eventually end in death. There is that feeling of living in limbo until parang hanggang kailan, until when do we need to take care of the patient. Okay. So the individual and the family that is able to cope and adjust with the chronic illness have accepted psychologically and organizationally the changes that present with the chronic illness. They have devised an ongoing modus operandi or a working functional strategy to cope with what's happening. So again, different expectations when the disease is progressive, when the disease is relapsing, and when the disease is stable. Different expectations when the disease comes with incapacitation and when there is no incapacitation. But the important thing there is they understand how to deal with the illness. They understand or they can anticipate. They know what can happen and they know what to do when something happens. Okay, so the last phase, your terminal phase, is the pre-terminal stage of an illness where the inevitability of death becomes apparent or dominates family life. So of course, the important psychosocial type here is the outcome. So for non-fatal illness, walang problema. But for possibly fatal and fatal, it becomes more difficult for the family to cope. Okay, so when you say fatal disease, then it is likely to cause death. And diseases like metastatic cancer, AIDS, or end-stage organ disease, and your amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and your myasthenia gravis. These are fatal illnesses that are likely to end in death. Okay, you're possibly fatal, and you're non-fatal, so there's no predictable timeline of demise. There is no assurance that the chronic illness will be the actual cause of the death. Okay, so you examples of your possibly fatal, but again, that would depend on the complications that may arise. That would depend on whether or not the patient is neglected or taken care of properly. Okay, so you have diseases like spinal cord injury, cerebral palsy, your Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. Okay, so these are not your, this will not cause death, no, but the complications that come with it, and how the family responds to the illness, or how the patient responds to the chronic illness, will dictate whether or not it becomes fatal. What are the developmental tasks of the family in the terminal phase? So they should be able to address issues of separation, death, grief. They should be able to resolve yung mourning, parang adjusting to the possibility of death. Okay, and later on, be able to go back to a normal life beyond the loss. So anticipated outcomes dictate how they will react to the illness. Okay, so the possibility of imminent death makes way from overprotection. So on the side of the family, ayaw na nila papuntahin kahit saan. Hindi na pwedeng, wala nang activities yung bata kasi nga natatakot sila na baka may mangyari. Okay. It can also lead to powerful secondary gains from the ill patient. So dahil may sakit siya, you have to do everything I say. Ganyan. So special treatment na siya bigla. Okay, so there is anticipatory grief. Andyan pa yung pasyente, but the patient is being treated already like as if they would die tomorrow. Okay, so that's also difficult for the family. There's anxiety, because they're always thinking that the patient can go anytime or will die anytime. Okay. You expect difficult coping, especially from family members who, sometimes it's from guilt. They have family members who are not able to take care of the patient physically. So they're the ones who are overseas. So they have to be there, because if they don't work, they can't help the patient. But the anxiety, the difficulty of being away from the patient, not being able to take care of the patient, it's there also. Okay. So difficulty coping when resources are limited. So they don't know. The decision is always, as much as they want to do everything, they are limited by the lack of finances. Okay. Difficult coping because they have been so dependent on the patient, and they don't really, they don't know how to survive without that patient, or they don't know what they can do, what will happen to them if the patient dies. Okay, so expect stress and illness in the caregivers. So we already talked about the effect of stress among family members taking care of the ill family members also. So if that family member is not supported well, then they can become ill also. When they are ill also, they cannot take care of the patient. So it becomes a cycle. So some reflection points. So families unable to put long-term uncertainty into perspective are at high risk for exhaustion and dysfunction. Okay, so exhaustion, especially if they don't understand what's going on, if they do not anticipate what can happen. So lagi na lang, the decision making, it's very difficult for them. So laging go, even if resources are already maximized, wala na talaga silang pang So di nila naiintindihan kung ano yung mga dapat nilang gawin, kailangan nilang gawin. So they cannot, if they are unable to readjust, then you expect exhaustion. You expect dysfunction because instead of, at some point, because they are so, because there's difficulty adapting, because there is, there's somehow miscommunication already. So there may be family dysfunction. But if in the first place, you have a functional family able to talk things out, able to, like I said, exchange roles flexibly, then there is less risk for exhaustion and dysfunction. But if they are dysfunctional to begin with, talagang, you expect some family members to not move at all. They don't care anymore, or they're not that quick to respond anymore, because of some deeper family problem. then you expect that there is difficulty coping. Okay, so you expect more of this. If there is a chronic illness with an unpredictable course, you expect this more with an illness that has a progressive course. Okay, so progressive and becomes complex through time. You expect this more with an illness that is episodic, and if the episodes are mas madalas na, the exacerbations. Okay, so future planning, adapting, and coping may be hindered by anticipatory anxiety and more confusion as to what can happen, what they should do. Okay, so what should you do as physicians when you are faced with this uncertainty, with this difficulty coping? Okay, so guidance and support from us, from physicians like you, and assurance of continuity of care are important for families to be able to adapt and cope despite the presence of a chronic illness. Okay, so we should always ensure illness understanding. So they know what the disease is, they know what they are in store, what's in store that comes with that disease. They are on top of things. Okay, so you should be able to help patients and families. You should be able to identify their strengths and their vulnerabilities. So how can we further strengthen these strengths, and how do we improve on these vulnerabilities? We especially when you are in the terminal phase or when you are approaching the terminal phase, we should be able to help explore their spiritual practices and beliefs, their spirituality. That's very difficult now when they are already exhausted, when they are already at the end of their, parang they've done everything already and they're desperate and they're feeling hopeless already. The spirituality is what can keep them going. So we should be able to help them identify the possible sources of distress. Would it be financial? Would it be adjusting? Would it be the caregiving tasks? Or would it be the decision making? Okay, so we should be able to provide anticipatory care, anticipatory guidance. Anticipatory meaning before it happens, not while it's happening or when it's happening. Okay, and we should be able to provide assurance and continuity of care. So we know what, we know the course of an illness. We know what can happen. Sila, they don't really, they can't see the whole picture. But tayo, we know what can happen. So we should be able to, guide them through. So in my experience, especially because I deal with the terminally ill. So when that time comes, when there's limited options already, but there's not much to be done for the patient. All you can do is just treat the symptoms and make sure that the patient is comfortable. My experience with families, sometimes when something happens, even if you talk to them about it already, so beforehand, though you've actually done anticipatory care. So sabi natin, di ba, we talked about the possibility of this time happening, this what's happening now, di ba? We talked about it before, and we said that when the time comes and there's really not much we can do to reverse the problem, precisely because we are dealing with the terminal illness. So we have to focus on comfort, because this is what we discussed before. Kasi no matter what we do, it won't really change the outcome of the patient. Okay, so it will be medically futile. So even if we intubate a patient with severe COPD or already with very, very poor lung function, it will not reverse the COPD. But you can, the patient is still there, but supported na lang fully by the ventilatory support, not by the mech vent. And the moment you discontinue the mechanical ventilator, the natural course of the illness will progress. So the patient will eventually die. So, diba? So this is what's happening now. Okay, so additional guidance is needed. So what do we do from here? What what are our options? So no more reversing the illness. No, the patient will definitely progress. The illness will definitely progress and the patient will definitely die. So how do we assure that this patient, despite being in that condition, will still be supported? Okay, so what medications can we give? Who can support the patient? Okay, so trabaho pa ba yan ng pulmonologist? I've done all the trying to reverse and trying to stabilize the patient. Am I still the one responsible for this end of life care? So if you can do it, by all means. But if you can't, then know that there is such a service. This is your hospice care that can take over the terminal phase, that symptom control and maintaining or helping the patient be more comfortable despite the progression of the illness. So ganun yung continuity of care to be there for the patient and family. So management considerations that can affect family adaptation. So the more complex the illness, the more complex the decision making required to manage the illness, the more frequent the exacerbations, and the kind of treatment regimen that is required will affect, of course, family coping. Mas komplikado yung sakit, mas madalas sa ospital, at mas komplikado yung treatment na kailangan. So there's no assurance that this treatment will actually help the patient or even cure the patient. Okay, so that will affect family adaptation. So the amount of home versus hospital-based care required by the disease. Okay, so kung mas hospital setting yung kailangan ng patient, so you expect na mas anxious in family. Pero while in the hospital, will they be able to maintain the needs, the resources to keep the patient in the hospital? And is there a point keeping the patient in the hospital, or is it better na nga to just continue taking care of the patient at home? But at home, are they able to provide the needs of the patient? Will that patient be monitored? Will that patient be taken care of? Is the family capable of providing the needs of the patient, the medical needs of the patient? Okay, so again, the frequency and intensity of symptoms. So progressive and episodic course of disease definitely requires more adaptation and more flexibility from the family. So regimens that require significant financial resources and caregiving time and energy would of course affect family adaptation. And again, knowledge on outcome and treatment options are very important physician-dependent tasks. Okay, so for them to be supported, for them to at least reduce the anxiety and to help them adapt better, they should know what's going on. They should know their treatment options. They should know what to do in case of things like that. Okay, so transition periods are critical. Okay, so from the acute phase to the chronic phase to the terminal phase, they should be able to complete their developmental tasks. So we already know what goes on in the crisis phase. Okay, so by the time they are in the early adjustment to outcomes, have they really readjusted? Do they know already how to deal with the succeeding phases of the patient's disease? Okay, so sometimes, just like your family illness trajectory, you have that crisis phase that transitions quickly to the terminal phase. Okay, so massive stroke. So there's no chronic phase anymore kasi the patient is progressively deteriorating. Okay, so the permanency of outcome from that crisis phase is to readjust to the possibility that any time the patient will die. So from crisis to terminal, just like from stage 1 to stage 4. Okay? So unfinished business from previous time phases can complicate or block movement through the transitions. So they've had a long chronic phase, no, but they've reached already the terminal phase. No, but if they still act like they are in the chronic phase when they should already be in the terminal phase, dun magkakaproblema. Kasi aggressive pa rin sila, they're doing everything pa rin, no, to cure the patient or to keep the patient stable. But they should already be, accepting the fact that anytime the patient will go, anytime they will lose the patient. So how do they readjust to that? Okay, or they are still in the crisis phase when, parang anxious na anxious sila eh. Stable naman pala yung patient. So if they are not able to transition well from one phase to the next, then definitely there will be more anxiety, there will be more difficulty adapting, and you expect that other family members who are taking care of the patient can also be ill, can also get sick. So families need to reevaluate the appropriateness of their previous life structure in the face of new illness-related developmental demands. Okay, so again, depending on the course, depending on the disease that we're looking at, and depending on the phase they are in, so they should be able to readjust as needed. Okay, so they should be able to go back to their lives so that they are still be functional, and when needed, they should be able to come together and support each other and the patient. Okay, so this is difficult, when you are in the chronic phase, when you are when you're dealing with chronic illness in general, especially with the different courses, the different kinds of course of disease. Okay, so again, episodic, paulit-ulit na lang. Okay, so okay tayo, tapos meron na namang problema. Progressive, di na tayo nakapahinga. Tuloy-tuloy na. Paano ba ako babalik pa sa trabaho ko when I can't, how can I move on? So on, all of those. Enmeshed families, as much as families that are dysfunctional. So dysfunctional family pa rin ang enmeshed. Enmeshed, masyado silang involved. Okay, so masyado silang, they cannot return to their usual roles. They're not that flexible. They will have a harder time adapting. You expect more problems. Okay, so ganun din sa disengaged. Disengaged families, walang pakialaman. They don't come together when the patient needs their help, when the other families need their help. Okay, so ganun din. They will have a hard time coping with a chronic illness if they are dysfunctional. Okay, so home-based treatments for chronically ill patients, as much as they are parang easier, at some point, they can also be difficult at some point. So depende sa capacity, the capabilities of the family to provide or to sustain home care. Kasi with home-based treatments, it places a heavier responsibility on the patient and the family. So sa hospital, andali tawagin yung doctor, andali sitahin yung nurse, andali hingiin yung gamot. No, but when you're at home, kayo yan. When something happens, kayo lang din ang magde-decide muna, until you bring the patient back to the healthcare system. But on the other hand, when you are at home, you all get to take care of the patient. So lalo na for the dying patients, the patients at the end of their lives, it's better. Kasi wala ka rin naman nang gagawin sa hospital eh. But at home, you get to be with the patient, you get to take care of the patient in the last few days, weeks, or months. Okay? You get to show, take care of them. Okay? But again, depende sa course, depende sa capacity of the patient, of the family, to take care of the patient. So crucial predictors of long-term home treatment compliance. So again, will they be able to take care of the patient at home? Okay, so how is the support system? Emotionally, financially? Are they able to exchange roles flexibly? Do they have effective problem-solving skills? Or nagsisisihan, nagtuturuan? Do they communicate? Do they have open communication so that they can thresh things out, so they can decide properly? Okay, and most importantly, will they be able to maintain the needs of the patient? Works both ways, but again, depends on the type of illness, the capacity of the family, and their understanding and the support also that they have. Okay, so when they are home-based, do they have a physician who can take care of their needs at home? So, hindi ibig sabihin nandun yung physician. Ibig sabihin, they are in constant communication also with the healthcare system, with the physician, with the hospital, so that when something happens, there is easy transition. There's decision making is easier. Right? So paradoxically, a family's hope to resume a normal life cycle might only be realized after the death of a patient. Okay, so sometimes, when faced with an illness that is highly debilitating, so you have an incapacitated patient who is fully dependent on you, but it's not fatal. Okay, so you have to take care of this patient, for the longest time. So it can be an exhausting problem without an end, or seemingly without an end. For potentially fatal illness, there's that living in limbo, not knowing when it might happen, how it will happen, all of that. There's even survivor guilt. Diba? Sana ako na lang. And a normal life cycle may only resume after the death of the patient. Okay, so they readjust after the illness sets in. Finally, they cope, they adapt to what's happening. And then when the patient is gone, they have to readjust again. Okay, and then they will realize, parang it's different. So different for different families. So you have the widow, who would rather keep on taking care of the husband rather than living a life alone. And you have the exhausted caregivers na finally I have time to take care of myself because it's been years. I've taken care of the ill person, and I've neglected myself. And so that's the only time that they can go back to looking after themselves or regaining friends, things like that. Okay, so that's your psychosocial typology of illness. Thank you for listening. Do you have questions?